It turns out that when you relentlessly pursue progress, you eventually become undeniable. At a certain point, even your harshest critics can no longer deny the merit of what you've accomplished. We in Cardano are somewhere around that tipping point right now. Ready? Let's go. Today, we are going to discuss the Messari analyst call that went down, the Cardano Foundation's Blockchain Education Alpha program, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce calling out the SEC, and some live footage of a meme coin investor collecting their reward. If this image also represents your experience over the last half decade in Cardano, or if you're finding value in these videos each weekday, please consider delegating to the Army of Spies stake pool, ticker AOS. Well, guys, I wasn't totally sure this day would ever come. I bought my first ADA in Q1 of 2018. I'd been following Cardano for a while, but I bought my first ADA in Q1 2018. That means I've been in Cardano a half decade, a little over a half decade. And I know many of you have also been in that long, longer, some comparable amount of time. We've all been waiting a long, long time just to get a little respect in this ecosystem. I think there's a lot of respect in the ecosystem, but to get a little respect for the ecosystem from the rest of the crypto landscape. I think the last half decade has felt like that thumbnail climbing up the side of a sand dune. No sure footholds. Every step is a struggle. Your feet can't even get any respect from the sand. The sand just slips away every time you take a step. That's how it's felt in Cardano. I think actually inside the ecosystem has felt great. Everything inside the ecosystem over the last half decade has actually been fantastic. But as far as respect goes from the rest of crypto, different story. But I think we all knew deep down that at some point, Cardano, all of us, IOG, Emergo, the CF, the Cardano Foundation, all the ecosystem together, at some point, we would have put so much energy, so many human hours, so much work into the Cardano ecosystem that we would be undeniable. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to take credit away from the CF, Emergo, and IOG. Certainly, they have done the bulk of the actual work, but I think all the rest of us have put in a certain amount of energy, a certain amount of human attention, a certain amount of discussing and being enthusiastic for it, and just, humans putting energy into an idea. And that idea is this Cardano ecosystem and everything it represents. But even given all that, even though I think deep down all of us knew at some point we would become undeniable, I'm not sure I ever imagined that we would be seeing the CEO of the Cardano Foundation and the CEO of IOG being interviewed by anyone at Messari. And granted, this isn't the first time this has happened. We've seen Charles on stage with the founder of Messari before, and we noticed that Messari did this gigantic rundown of Cardano recently, which was kind of a changing of the tides. And we discussed on the channel, part of why that was probably happening. But I think the important part, what it actually symbolizes, is that we've neared this tipping point when mainstream crypto media outlets are going to start paying legit attention to Cardano. They were happy to sort of join in on the being critical of Cardano, making fun of Cardano, pretending like Cardano didn't matter, that for some unknown reason that no one could really lay out, Cardano was not to be taken seriously. Cardano was out there, and it didn't matter the amount of work that was being put into Cardano. It didn't matter how good the technology was. It didn't matter how strong the community was. They just sort of put Cardano in this other category of irrelevance. Doesn't matter. And then the community just kept growing. They just kept publishing more papers. The academics working on Cardano and related issues just kept doing more academic work. The engineers building things out in Cardano just kept building. Everybody just kept hiking up that steep, sandy hill until we arrive at today, When too much work has been done, Cardano is too undeniable. And we see Messari doing analyst calls all about Cardano. And Charles and Fred had some interesting things to say. This was actually a very, very good rundown of everything going on in Cardano. And don't be fooled. Red Sheehan, who is hosting this for Messari, he knows Cardano. He knows quite a bit about Cardano. I don't think people were, questioning, how much he knew about our ecosystem. I think he knows what's going on in Cardano quite well. I think he did a great job in this whole interview, presentation, analyst call, whatever you want to call it. I think he did a great job. And Charles and Fred went through a lot of details about what's happening right now in Cardano and what's about to happen. So we started out with Charles telling us about SIP 1694 Voltaire making us the world's largest DAO soon, which is nothing to sneeze at. This is a pretty big accomplishment, being the world's biggest DAO. Cardano was also the first to market with extended UTXO. It's kind of funny. Extended UTXO was something we used to talk about, and it was this very novel new concept. It was almost like we were inventing terminology for something that maybe didn't even need a terminology yet. And now we look around and there are multiple ecosystems using extended UTXO, but Cardano was first to market. We were also first to market with provably secure proof of stake. We also have this non-custodial staking that some of the largest ecosystems in the world, Ethereum, wish they had. They made different design choices. And I think a lot of people now in Ethereum, if they even know what non-custodial staking is, if they even know that it exists, they probably wish they had it. Charles reminded us that Node 8 will be a great foundation for Voltaire. Charles feels like he can now just be another project builder in the ecosystem as we go into this Voltaire era. He and IOG will no longer be at the center of the ecosystem. He'll just be another builder in the ecosystem, and he'll be able to work on the things he really wants to work on now, like wiring the developed world into crypto via RealFi in Cardano. Frederick told us that Cardano is not just a tech play, it's a technology and people play. The community is very important in Cardano in the eyes of the Cardano Foundation, and I believe that is 100% accurate. I like that the Cardano Foundation has always sort of been seemingly focused, at least from my perspective, seems like they've been pretty focused on the community part of that technology and people play description of Cardano. Charles mentioned that staking in Cardano has amazingly stayed over 70%. 70% of the ecosystem is involved in helping in validation. It's incredible and unheard of for 7 out of 10 people in a gigantic crypto ecosystem to be involved in validation the way that the delegators are, and over 70% are delegated. He also mentioned that input endorsers would possibly be coming in the next 24 to 36 months. And that's going to be a truly novel level of throughput without increasing centralization, as in something like Solana. I think we've discussed this many times on the channel. It's pretty easy to increase throughput if you also increase centralization. We've seen that in many, many ecosystems, maybe the most infamous of which is Solana. But it's novel. It's a novel innovation to increase throughput to such an extreme degree while also getting something that actually increases decentralization. And that's the way input endorsers is being built. Charles says 8 or 9 projects are currently planning to use Hydra right now, but Hydra is just one scaling solution. Input endorsers is another one, and it's been sort of a long arc research project that will give us more throughput while, like I said, making us more decentralized. We also have rollups and side chains sort of in the mix of scaling solutions in Cardano. Cardano, of course, has been pretty focused on side chains, and rollups is something that seems like every single ecosystem, at least in the EVM world, is extremely focused on rollups. Rollups are only one part of Cardano's solutions to scaling, and I think probably input endorsers scaling at the L1 at the base layer is going to turn out to be a more profitable exercise than rollups. But rollups are also a part of our strategy. We've also got rollups. We can do all the same stuff with rollups. It's just that we've got a great sidechain strategy we've got Hydra, and we've got input endorsers on top of that. Frederick also said a lot of the crypto education that we've seen so far in crypto has focused on Gen 1 and Gen 2 blockchains. The Cardano Foundation is now launching their blockchain education alpha program. This will culminate in on-chain certificates for graduates, and it will teach people about third-generation blockchains and the Cardano blockchain stack, so they'll actually be able to deploy things on Cardano. And best of all, it is free. I think this is probably the only way that blockchain education is really going to work well, at least at this stage, is if it's free. If we want to onboard developers, maybe we just have to make them, and definitely the best way to make them would be by making the education free. Charles talked a little bit about AI in Cardano. He said SingularityNet thinks LLMs need to come to blockchains because AI needs to be decentralized. It shouldn't just be in the hands of a few companies like OpenAI and Google and some of these gigantic, monstrous entities in tech. He says that Minotaur, which we've also talked about this channel, could have many different proofs of things, many different consensus related proofs. We'd have proof of work, proof of stake, proof of storage. Maybe World Mobile would need some kind of proof of something, related to what they're doing. They've got aerostats flying around in the air. There's all kinds of different proofs of things that could be valuable to different types of dApps and networks and systems inside Cardano. He said maybe SingularityNet could leverage the existence of all the crypto hardware that's out there, since there are actually more ASIC units out there than there is AI hardware out there at this point, which is something to think about. It's kind of crazy to think about that. But I think if you've been following sort of the development of proof of work over the last decade, you can easily imagine how that's true. Charles also talked about Marlowe. He said Marlowe as a DSL was 4 years in development, which he described as a development hell. But going to a Turing incomplete, less complex code, as we see in a DSL like Marlowe, allows for formal proofs of correctness that may help prevent errors. Those errors, of course, being the source of a lot of the hacks we've seen in crypto. So he's sort of describing how you can think about DSLs. He's saying, hey, with very complex programming languages, it's easy to make mistakes. But what we see in a lot of, especially the use case for Marlowe, which is sort of business and financial use cases for smart contracts, what we see is the reuse over and over again of code. So he says the smart play is to go to a Turing incomplete, less complex language, because then you're less likely to be creating opportunities for those errors that will result in the hacks. This is a pretty smart play. He says, now that we have a template for building DSLs, though, again, building Marlowe over these 4 years was kind of a hell, but now there's a template for building DSLs, it will be much easier to build other DSLs, and there might be all kinds of different use cases requiring different types of DSLs. Back to AI. Charles mentioned that the bane of AI is non-determinism, because with non-determinism, you get abundant edge cases. Cardano, because they chose Haskell, which is a functional programming language, Cardano has very high determinism. So Cardano will actually be perfect for AI. I strongly believe that we don't even know all the ways that AI will dovetail with anything. We don't even know the ways yet in which AI is bound to dramatically change virtually anything we can imagine, especially crypto. But because Cardano has this high level of determinism, because everything in Cardano is based on this functional programming language, Cardano is going to be the perfect foundation for a crypto ecosystem to dovetail with AI, to be a home for AI. And they also mentioned that Haskell, despite all the stories we hear about Haskell having such an extreme learning curve and it being a language used only by a small ecosystem of developers, Haskell is actually taught in some of the intro classes in a lot of the elite sort of computer science departments at institutions like Oxford, MIT, and the University of Edinburgh, also the University of Zurich. I believe in this interview, Fred said that the daughter of the CLO of the Cardano Foundation is actually taking a Haskell class as part of her intro sort of to computer science or some kind of a lower level computer science class at the University of Zurich. Fred also said that Node 8 is going to allow for SPO votes on parameters. The first poll, the first vote of the SPOs will be on min fee and K. This is pretty big news. I think all of us SPOs in Cardano have been thinking and talking and discussing these two parameters for a long, long time. And even beyond the SPOs, many members of the community have been begging for changes to K, which would effectively reduce the saturation level for stake pools, because K controls sort of the optimal number of stake pools at full saturation we're striving for in the ecosystem. So if we move from a K that would dictate a smaller number of fully saturated stake pools to a higher number, we're going to get a smaller saturation amount given the amount of ADA currently outstanding. And of course, the min fee parameter has been hugely controversial, and there are large swaths of community members who would like to see that go away. So we're going to have this vote, and the way it's going to work, we've talked about it before on this channel. There's going to be sort of a test vote on I believe, the pre-production test net. And then the delegators will be able to see how their stake pool is going to vote. They'll be able to tell which direction their current stake pool is going to go. And then they can move their delegation if the stake pool's elections don't match their own kind of predilections. So the delegators will be able to move their delegation based on the test vote, and then the final vote will actually happen. Fred, obviously described how this is very intentional, and they mean for this to be a way for the whole Cardano staking system to sort of, redistribute itself based on, how the delegators themselves would vote. Charles also mentioned Mithril. He said that Mithril may be mature enough for integration into something like a Lace wallet, maybe in the late July, August sort of timeframe. Fred also said, when asked sort of like about sort of last comments, he said that the big thing crypto needs right now to really get over that hump and achieve some mainstream adoption, the thing that crypto needs right now is, and this applies to the coming years, is verifiable credentials and decentralized identity. He thinks that's what crypto in general needs. Luckily, that's exactly what Cardano was built for. Cardano has always been built with an eye towards creating verifiable credentials for people on the blockchain and decentralized identity. I thought this was a great rundown of everything in Cardano. Thank you for this, Masari, and it's always great to see Charles and Fred on the same live stream. Speaking of comeuppance and other good things, you might be amused by this development. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce, and mind you, we're talking about the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, not the digital Chamber of Commerce, which is kind of just a crypto-related thing. This is the actual U.S. Chamber of Commerce, has filed a brief in the Coinbase versus SEC case, and look what they said. We've got a nice screenshot down here. They said the SEC's actions are not just harmful policy, they are unlawful, and the consequences of the SEC's continued delay are severe for that reason too. We've got the U.S. Chamber of Commerce saying that the SEC's actions are unlawful. Finally, we've got some live video here of a meme coin investor showing up to collect their ROI. Here we go. Oh man. Oh yeah, that's not the ROI she was looking for. Let's see that again. Let's see that one more time. She's here to collect her ROI. Oh, right in the face. Oh no. Oh no. All right. Well, I hope none of you fall into that category. I hope you're keeping your little ADAs safe and outside of those lobster traps. I hope your ADA is running free, staying free on your hardware wallet, and it's not wandering into any lobster traps. I hope you all had a great week. I hope you're getting ready for a great weekend, and I'll talk to you soon.